Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Moose. If you don't already know, I'm a Canadian medical graduate. I'm a prospective anesthesiologist here in Canada, and I achieved a 4.0 GPA with some pretty unconventional study styles. This channel is meant to help you build a study framework from the ground up with the goal of making you a happier, more efficient, and more successful student. All of the techniques and principles that I'm sharing with you are ones that I used and helped create a ton of freedom in my life. Now, with that freedom, I chose to play video games, play sports, see my friends, and all that stuff. But hopefully you're able to create the same freedom, and what you end up choosing to do with it will be totally up to you. In this video, I'm going to share with you a philosophy and a few principles that completely changed the way that I looked at studying. Now, the reason why it's important to have a few philosophies and principles as a student is because it gives you a perspective to interpret all of the study techniques and strategies that you see. If you're just pulling a ton of techniques and strategies randomly from online content creators or from your peers and friends around you, they're not guaranteed to work because you won't really know how to apply them or what the purpose of these techniques are. So these philosophies and principles that I'm sharing with you are ones that I've seen work universally for all of the students that I've mentored, and they work very well for the students that I end up teaching. So if you're a student, this is philosophy number one that you need to understand. If your grades are good, your life will be good. If your grades are bad, your life will slowly decline. Now, I know on the surface this sounds like an extremely toxic perspective, and it's really contradictory to what you usually hear. Most people will tell you to have a work-life balance, and most people will tell you that grades aren't everything. And I'm a big proponent of that. I believe that what's more important is the content and the learning that you get from school, and also the person that you become at the end of your education. The reason this philosophy was so helpful for me when I was young was because I was the type of kid who wanted to do whatever I wanted without anybody telling me anything. I would play video games for 6 to 7 hours. My parents would walk in telling me I need to stop playing, and I would just tell them I have straight A's. And they would agree. If my friends made plans, I would see them. If my girlfriend wanted to see me, I would be able to see her. Basically, any hobbies that I had, I was able to attend to. And all of this was because I knew that as long as I was keeping up my grades, I could do whatever I wanted. Looking back, it's a really cocky and arrogant attitude, and I don't really have that anymore. But I know this resonates with a lot of people. A lot of people have interests and passions that they want to do outside of school, but it's really hard to truly enjoy and engage those activities when your grades are bad and that stress is looming over you. So I want you to be different than most students, and I want you to really prioritize your grades. And I want you to remind yourself that getting good grades should be your goal. Even if you fail at it, even if you fail this semester or this year, even if you fail your whole degree, if you spent your entire education truly trying to get the best possible grades that you could, you will have taken a lot more out of it than if you were very complacent and just hoping to pass. Okay, easier said than done. Now the question is, how do we actually get good grades? Well, first we need to start by creating a foundation before we can start to incorporate any techniques. These are the 3 pillars that I think are paramount to any student who's going through high school, college, or university. The 3 pillars are as follows: affection, intention, and exposure. Any study technique that you incorporate should aim to improve one or all 3 of these pillars without compromising the other ones. Affection refers to how much you enjoy learning. It doesn't mean how much you enjoy going to class or how much you enjoy reading or taking notes. Those are just techniques aimed to help you learn. The goal is learning, and it should be really prioritized to try and make the learning process as fun and enjoyable as possible. In my experience, this is the most overlooked pillar, but I think it's the most important one. There was a time when I hated studying and I couldn't be bothered to open my books, but I learned that you can actually teach yourself to like and enjoy the studying process a lot more than you already do. A lot of people just write off, I don't like studying, or I don't like learning, or oh, it's really hard for me to apply myself in a course that's not relevant to my overall career path. But so many of these people fail to recognize that there are techniques and strategies actually aimed at improving how fun the learning process can be. And once I implemented this, I found that it completely changed the way that I was able to study. Now the second pillar is intention. Intention means how much are you engaging with the content that you're learning. Now this is based on the premise that not all studying is created equal. The only way you will learn is if you're studying to the point where your brain is actually tired at the end of your study session. Your brain should feel exhausted. Now this is a major turnoff for a lot of people. They'll say, whoa, I don't want studying to be hard, I want studying to be easy. But to really understand the value of what hard intentional studying means, let's use working out as an example. Most people understand that to get fit and get in shape, every set and rep that you do needs to be really challenging and really fatigue those muscles. So if you were to do 5 reps of a very difficult weight, where at the end of it you couldn't do another rep and your muscle was just exhausted, that's going to be a lot more stimulating than doing 30 reps of a really light weight, where at the end of it, you can't even tell that you worked out. This is the same with studying. 5 minutes of studying with a lot of intent that really makes you tired and exhausted at the end of it is going to help you learn way more effectively than 30 minutes of studying where you're half distracted and not really using all of your brain's potential to try to learn the information. Maybe you see what I'm starting to get at with the first two pillars, but it's starting to sound like 5 minutes of challenging studying in a way that's kind of enjoyable is going to make you smarter and better prepared for your exams than doing 30 minutes of studying where you're not really engaging your brain and you're going to hate yourself by the end of it anyways. 5 minutes compared to 30 minutes. This is kind of the premise of what being an efficient student looks like. The last pillar is exposure, and exposure means how much time are you actually spending learning. Now, most people understand that to be academically successful, you need to put in the hours. And although this sucks, we all kind of understand that it's a necessary evil. But the key here is how much time are you actually spending learning, not how much time are you spending in front of your books or taking notes or highlighting or whatever. How much time are you spending learning? As we discussed earlier, not all studying is created equal. So as an extreme example, I often in my university wouldn't show up to my classes and I would sit down in the library in the afternoon for a 3-hour block and I would study really hard with a lot of intensity, but at the end I will have spent all that time learning. I would leave the library very fulfilled, knowing that I actually learned all of my material, and now I had the whole day ahead of me to do whatever I wanted. This was contrasted to a lot of my peers and classmates who would go to class in the morning for maybe 4 or 5, 6 hours, and then they would do a study session for another 4 or 5 hours. And at the end of it, they wouldn't have really applied a lot of intention towards their studying. They didn't really like their studying. So in those 10 hours, they only studied 1 hour. And that's not an exaggeration to say. There's a lot of students that spend 10 hours doing schoolwork and only do 1 hour of learning. Now, I'm not saying skip class, and I still went to my mandatory classes and I went to class when it was appropriate, but I'm just trying to paint a picture as to how you can really make your learning as efficient as possible for you with different techniques, but really focusing on enjoying your studying, having some intention behind your studying, and making sure that all of your study time is learning time. So I want you to do this visualization with me. Give me 30 seconds of your time and a little bit of your imagination. Imagine you're student A. You live in a world where you actually enjoy studying. You do the hardest studying possible, and all of your study time is spent learning. Now contrast this with student Bs. Student Bs are all around you. Student Bs hate studying, they hate learning. They don't have any strategies or foundations behind their study methods, and as a result, they're barely learning for any of that time. So not only are they spending more time than student A trying to study, they're not getting the same results. In my world, I'm student A. I hear very often, Moose never studies, Moose never goes to class. How does Moose have time to play video games? How does he have time to see all his friends all the time? And it's not because I'm getting lucky or I have a higher IQ than everybody else. It's because I spent a little bit of time creating a study system that optimized the way I study. And I'm telling you, a little bit of efficiency when you study will trim minutes and then hours off your days, which will correspond to weeks, months, even years of stress and studying saved over a lifetime if you're in a very long educational program like I am. I want to reiterate, the learning process is extremely important if you're a student. It should be your utmost priority. But I also want to share with you how it can be easier than a lot of people are making it out to be. How it can actually be fun and enjoyable. How if you get the most out of your education, you will be so much better off. You will transform into a completely different person. Affection, intention, and exposure. These are 3 principles that I want you to write down somewhere. Ideally, you should write them down in the notes section of your phone so you can refer to them every time you study. When I went back years ago to try to learn how to study, I wrote all of my tips, strategies, and techniques that resonated with me. I wrote them down in the notes section of my phone. So every time I sat down to study, I quickly took a glance at them and I tried to be a little bit mindful of applying them during that study session. And over a few days to weeks to months, I got way better at studying. Now I want you to reflect. What level are you at for each of the pillars? How much do you enjoy learning? How much do you actually engage with your material? How much of your study time are you actually spending learning? Whichever one is your weakness must be prioritized during your next study sessions. I know some of you are going into final exam season. I know some of you just finished your semester and you're going into spring summer classes, or maybe you have a summer break. Whatever stage of your education you might be at, I think these can benefit you incredibly over the long run. Of all the students I've mentored and taught, these students have really changed the way they looked at their education as well. I'm going to be releasing a lot of videos very quickly to share some of the most cutthroat and efficient study techniques that I have to hopefully make your studying more optimized. If you stuck around to this part of the video, then I hope what I've been saying has been helpful for you. If what I'm saying is resonating with you, then hit the subscribe button. It's going to help me make more videos, and it's going to help me with my goal of building a community of students that share similar goals and ambitions. I'm also very new to YouTube, and I'm working on improving the quality of my videos, so if you have any suggestions, I'd appreciate if you leave them down in the comments. Until next time.